are the top interior defensive linemen in the NFL today. Welcome, football fans, to another BLV NFL rankings video. In this video, I rank the top 32 interior D linemen in the NFL entering 2025. These are, in my opinion, the best defensive tackles in the NFL right now. So, if that sounds good, and you love player rankings just like this, and you want more individual player rankings on the defensive side of the football, corners, linebackers, edge rushers, then Gronk spike the like button, because that's the only way I really know you like these videos. So if you want more top 32s, including edge rushers and even defensive lines, then like the video, and don't be a jabroni. Obviously, subscribe to the channel to keep up with the content. Let me know in the comments who's too high, who's too low, who's your favorite D tackle in football right now. Let me know in the comments, and let's rank the best in the game today. This is my opinion on the top 32 in football. At number 32, we're going to begin with an underrated name. Poona Ford, now of the Los Angeles Rams, last season played on the Chargers. So he's staying in LA, but on a new team. Poona Ford is a problem in the run game, and it's because he is a little bit shorter at the defensive tackle position. I believe he might not even be 6 foot. I think he might be 5'11", but he's an absolute fridge. And he uses that height actually as an advantage. He uses that leverage in the run game to be able to win, penetrate into the backfield, and just cause problems for any interior offensive line and interior running game. It's hard to run against a Poona Ford-led interior because he can get in there with his quicks, he can get in there with his leverage, and I think that's what makes him a top 32 D tackle in football. Last year, he actually graded as a top 5 defensive tackle according to PFF. Now, the reason I don't have him higher, he's not the greatest pure pass rusher in the world. He is more of a run defending first player. He only ranked 47th in pressures last year, only put up 3 sacks. So production-wise, he's not an outrageous pass rusher, although he does showcase reps of putting together a spin move with incredible quickness, and then occasionally he'll get in the backfield due to his quickness in his hands. So Ford is not a dominant pass rusher, which to me is the most important trait that an interior lineman or any lineman can have. So that definitely weakens his potential ranking. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to seeing him play with the Rams. I think there will be some similarity from a scheme perspective with the Chargers. I think he will play over the ball quite a bit with the Rams, and I'm looking forward to seeing him with those 5-man fronts and a lot of 5-man pass rush where he's able to just go one-on-one against a lot of centers in this league. So I'm looking forward to that. I thought he was a very big part and honestly an unsung hero of one of the best defenses in football last year, and I think he'll make already one of the best defensive lines in the Rams even better and more stout against the run, which was really their weakness last year. So Poona Ford is my number 32. At number 31, Dalvin Tomlinson of the Arizona Cardinals, a long-time, top-notch interior defensive lineman. He's just always been very capable, always been very solid. I would even call him good for many years in this league. Dalvin Tomlinson has been sort of, in recent years, in my opinion, kind of like miscast in terms of like the categorization of the type of player you would believe him to be, because he is a massive dude who has largely played nose tackle in this league, and he's shifted between schemes depending on where he's been. Recently, he's played a lot for Cleveland, so more of the 4-man traditional 3-tech roles, but at the same time, the guy's played in the more 3-4 style of defenses earlier in his career with teams like the Giants, right? But you look at what he's able to do, and I actually think he's a better pass rusher than he's given credit for. He was 26th in pressures this year. He also had the 15th best pass rushing productivity grade, according to Pro Football Focus, which focuses on the pass rush department and how efficient a rusher is at affecting the quarterback. And he put up 11 quarterback hits, only 3 sacks. So if you're just looking at sack numbers, that won't really pop off the page. But he's just been a very well-rounded player. I think he is somebody that a team like the Cardinals, who has really struggled on the inside, struggled to have size, first of all, struggled to stop the run. I think Tomlinson is going to provide that big, wide mammoth of an interior lineman that they've really been missing, and then just raise the floor drastically for this unit to give them a player that can be effective on all 3 downs, can play in all sort of situations. You can take him off the field in sub packages if you want, but he can still get after it on early downs as a pass rusher, as I brought up. So I just think he's very well-rounded, very solid, can contribute in any scheme, and that's why I rank him at number 31. At number 30, BJ Hill, one of my personal favorites over the last few seasons, the unsung hero of the Cincinnati Bengals defense in recent years, BJ Hill. And last year, it was the worst season we've seen from Cincinnati's defense under Lou Anarumo, and I felt like BJ Hill was one of the only guys that was really contributing in a positive fashion. He's just extremely solid, BJ Hill. A lot like Dalvin Tomlinson, like a guy that's been around the NFL for many seasons now and has just always played at a solid level of production. Last year, he graded as the 23rd best interior defensive lineman in football, according to PFF, and that's because, first of all, he's very stout against the run, and he makes many stops against the run. Last year, 25, which ranked 12th in the NFL. But he also can contribute as a pressure guy with 32 pressures last season, 33rd in the NFL, and he's very consistently active and a part of the defense and on the field, right? He was 18th in snaps, so 710 snaps last season for BJ Hill. What I really like about BJ Hill is his awareness, his instincts. He's always around the ball. He's always sniffing out a screen. He's always getting a tipped finger on the ball or something, or even at times making an incredible interception in big games that we've seen previously. Like, he's just incredibly savvy and aware. And it feels like if you look at the Bengals' production last year defensively, they were actually not that bad against the run. If you look at them from a yards per attempt vantage point, a lot of that has to do with BJ Hill anchoring this defensive line when he no longer had DJ Reader, right? They left and lost DJ Reader. He went to the Lions, and BJ Hill had to step up even more, and he basically showed us that he can do it on his own and at least produce on his own with those quality of run defense stops and then the pressures to go along with it. So just a very solid player, a player that I think's been underrated for many seasons, plays with incredibly high IQ and very stout on the inside of the Bengals defense. At number 29, I have a little bit more of a boomer bust defensive tackle, you could call him, but Calijah Kancey of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kancey is tricky because depending on your perspective of the position, I feel like some might not view him as worth the squeeze in terms of, like, he is very explosive. He is very productive, but at the same time, he can be a liability in certain areas of the game. According to PFF, right, he is very weak against the run. They regularly grade him as a very weak player against the run. And I think that's because of his size. I think that's because when he gets doubled or you get 4 hands on the guy, he's undersized. He's going to get bullied. He's going to get moved around. I think the other aspect of that is how much he's contributing in terms of he's a quick penetrator. So he's a player that's in the backfield immediately. He uses his pop off the ball, his quickness, his speed, and his hands to get in the backfield immediately. And if he doesn't get there, he's going to miss. And it's going to look like he opened a lane, right? But that's kind of how the Bucs want him to play. On top of that, he's also used a lot in like stunts, whether it be from the edge position or the interior. Bowles is using him as the chess piece of the defensive line in terms of lining him up everywhere and using his athleticism and his rare traits to get to the quarterback. Because really, when you think about it, the Bucs don't have a great sack producer on their defensive line. Calijah Kancey is the guy. I think he led the team in sacks last year. He had 7.5, and he didn't even play all the games, and he doesn't even play all the snaps, right? He was 54th in snaps at the position. Okay, he only played 541 snaps. He missed some games, but he also does play more situationally than some of the other guys on this list because, like I said, he's a little undersized, and the Bucs do like to have that size on early downs. But when you watch this guy, he's so incredibly explosive, right? And he is a productive pass rusher. Like, he was 11th in quarterback hits with 10. He was 15th in pass rush productivity grade, 6.6. He also was 20th in pressures, despite only playing 541 snaps, right? He put up 39 pressures, which was 20th in the NFL. If you look at, like, just the pure pass plays, he's one of the top 10 to 20 guys in football at affecting the quarterback. He had 11 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. So, yeah, like, some areas, like his grading against the run, I don't know, like, whether you lean into that or not. Todd Bowles seems to think that is whatever, but I take some credence to that because I feel like there is something there with that, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like he's still incredibly explosive, quick, jittery, and all that. So I expect him to have a huge year this year. I really do think that he could have a 10-plus sack season in the NFL very soon. So I expect that to happen. I have him at number 29 here just due to that maybe inconsistency in the run and pass game. So Calijah Kancey at number 29. At number 28, Devonte Wyatt of the Green Bay Packers. Wyatt is kind of like Kancey, where he's more situational than other players. They had TJ Slayton last year. Now he's on Cincinnati, who is one of the best, actually, in fact, ESPN's top-ranked ESPN win rate, run game guy, right? He was number 1, TJ Slayton, I think, in run stop win rate. So Devonte Wyatt wasn't playing in every single snap or every single situation. And he is more so like Calijah Kancey, known for his pure pass rushing skill set. And he isn't used similarly. They're very different schemes, but they have similar skills in terms of their quickness and their pop and their ability to first step, penetrate, and get upfield and get to the quarterback. And Devonte Wyatt also used in twists up front to even bend around the edge and get to the quarterback. Like, he actually has a lot of flexibility for a guy of his size. I think that's one of his better skills, is his ability to kind of dip or like bend his body and be malleable in his attack to be able to get through. I think one of the underrated areas of Wyatt is, like, in terms of the run stop snaps, even if he was graded poorly in a lot of those situations, according to PFF again, he did have a high run stop percentage last year. So when he was a part of the play, he did have a lot of stops in the run department. So I think that might be a little overblown as a potential weakness. It's never been his strength, even dating back to grading him at Florida. Like, he wasn't known for his run defense, but he is known for his pass rushing skill set, and that pops in his statistics. 4th in pass rush productivity grade at 7.8. So a top 5 pure producer of pressure. 10th in the NFL in win percentage as well. 33rd in pressures with 32, despite only playing 361 snaps. So I just talked about that percentage for Calijah Kancey. It's even more impressive for Devonte Wyatt, who had 32 pressures and 5 sacks on only 361 snaps. He also put together 2 consecutive years of similar results of 5-ish sacks in his first 3 years. So he's a former first-round pick with extreme potential as a pass rusher. His potential is through the roof. He's got to be a bigger contributor on all 3 downs in all phases and situations. And now I think he'll get that opportunity because Slayton did leave and they're expecting Wyatt to play more snaps. They should expect him to play more snaps because the guy was a first-round pick, and he's also been incredibly productive as a pass rusher. So even if he's a little bit weaker against the run, I'm willing to roll the dice with his ability to put pressure on the quarterback a little bit more, which is something the Packers were missing last year greatly. So at number 28, Devonte Wyatt, another one of these guys that really good as a pass rusher, a little weak as a run defender, not quite the amount of volume you'd like to see, but so much potential. At number 27, T'Vondre Sweat of the Tennessee Titans. T'Vondre Sweat is the opposite of Wyatt and Kancey. He's a powerhouse brick wall of a defensive tackle. You're not moving him, right? He's a strict nose tackle to defend the run and shut and stuff down the run. And that's what he does. 16th in PFF grade last year. He's one of those guys that you're not going to look at his stats and be impressed. He had 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits. Even in the run department, not overwhelming with 24 stops, which was only 27th in football. He did manage at his size to play the 21st amount of snaps, 699 in football, which is pretty impressive, and still put up 23 pressures for a guy that is mostly known as a run defender. That's not bad. So what I just love about him is just watch the Titans last year. Like they were a brick wall. You couldn't run the ball against them. They were one of the best run defenses in football last year throughout the season, and Sweat and Simmons were a huge part of that. I think it's actually the strength of their team, their interior defensive line. You just can't move this guy, and he has so much strength, so much power. You do worry a little bit about his consistency and his conditioning from season to season and his ability to play a high volume of snaps. And you do wonder if he'll ever have extreme pass rush upside. I don't think he does have a lot of potential in that area of his game, but he is a powerhouse and he is a brick wall and he's extremely young. And I think he's going to be one of the forces of the run defense department on the defensive line for years to come. So that's why I put him at number 27. At number 26, Gervon Dexter Sr. of the Chicago Bears. This guy was a little bit off my radar before my rankings, I'm not going to lie. But then once I dove into the stats and then I dove into the film on the player, he actually kind of shocked me. And I wasn't expecting him to be on the list when I was first writing down the names. Typically, I'll write down as many names as I can think of that I think for sure will be on the list, and then the guys that might be on the list. And he was kind of one of those guys that popped out at me on the stat department, where he was 20th in pressures, 14th in pass rush productivity, 31st in PFF grade, 4th in quarterback hits with 14. And he was also relatively well-rounded in his profile. 27th in stops with 24, 51 tackles. So overall for the Bears, he was their best defensive tackle last year. Andrew Billings also did get injured last season. And I just felt like when I turned on the tape of him, he does a lot of things really well. First off, I think he pursues the ball extremely well. He flows with the football on like sideline to sideline runs extremely well. He is vicious. He is an animal. He will knock you out. I like that about him. He's also really quick with his hands and his ability to kind of swim over an offensive lineman or into the backfield and dip through a potential blocker. I think he's very good at just getting quick hands on you and being able to get through and make a play and penetrate. I don't think he has incredible power or incredible closing speed. I don't think he has like the most physical traits you've ever seen. Like compared to guys like Calijah Kancey or Devonte Wyatt, he's not as physically talented as those guys, but I think he's technically a lot more refined. He's much more well-rounded, and overall his profile of production was a lot more impressive as a 3-down player. So feels like a guy you could never really have to take off the field, and he's very young. Like he's only been in, I think that was year 2 for him in Chicago. So I'm hoping that Dennis Allen can use him to his best of his ability. Obviously defensive tackles in that defense have been very crucial to their success over the years. I just wonder how his skill set will fit in a totally sort of different style, but we'll see how it goes. At number 26, a surprising entry here. I think one of the more underrated guys on the list, Gervon Dexter of the Bears. At number 25, Braden Fiske of the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this is a younger defensive tackle that I think many, even casual NFL fans to a certain degree would know because he plays on the Rams, but then also he popped. You know, he had the skill set. A lot of draft fans would know who he was out of FSU, but he popped a lot. He had 8.5 sacks as a rookie, which is extremely impressive. He had one game against Seattle where he just felt like he sacked the quarterback every second play of the game. And as a pass rusher, right, unbelievable traits, but then also unbelievable production. He was 11th in pressures with 51 as a rookie, 11th in pass rush productivity with 51, that's 51 pressures, but also, very much up there as well. In stops, even in the run game, he was 21st, which isn't exactly known as his strength. And then he also played a ton of snaps for them, was 29th in snaps, 10 tackles for loss, 44 tackles, like really well-rounded in terms of those stats. But when you look at him, he was graded 104th. And I think some of that was the weakness of his game entering the NFL. The weakness of his game is that he is undersized. And he does have a problem with getting ran over to a certain degree. He isn't the best in anchoring against the run. And that was a bit of a problem for him when you saw him against the best offensive lines like Detroit or like Philadelphia. I thought there were games where he was taken advantage of. But I think there's so many positives in terms of his quickness, his just burst, his pinballing off of different offensive linemen. And I just think he's very unique in terms of he just has rapid just ability to get to the quarterback. Like, that is a skill that is undeniable, right? 8.5 sacks as a rookie defensive tackle, 51 pressures. That speaks for itself. So a little bit more of a guy that kind of like Kancey and Wyatt don't exactly have the well-rounded skill set, but that's not what the Rams are asking him to be. That's not why they drafted him. That's not what he is, right? He is the quick penetration, just absolute. He's kind of a weird body too. He's like a round body, and he just seemingly bounces off of tackles and guards and finds his way to the quarterback consistently. So yeah, Fiske is really exciting to watch. And if he can get a little bit stronger and stout, I think he could move up into the top 15. So at number 25, Fiske of the Rams. At number 24, Jonathan Allen, now of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Allen did not have a strong year with the Commanders last year. He signed this offseason with the Vikings to a pretty substantial, I think, 3-year contract, if I'm not mistaken. He's been one of my favorite interior defensive linemen for many years now, and I feel like kind of underrated because he's played on Washington and they haven't been any good until last year. And it was actually one of his worst seasons, if not his worst season of his career last year, right? He was 119th in PFF grade. He was only playing 300 snaps, which was 106th at his position, only had 3 sacks, only had 16 pressures, right? But his pass rush productivity was still 27th, which speaks to maybe he didn't totally fall off, but he dealt with a lot of injuries, and he had to kind of play through a lot of injuries, and I just don't know if there's anything to really take from last year, because the year previous, he was still a good player. I think he still had about 5.5, 6 sacks. He was still top 20 in pretty much every defensive lineman statistic across the board. So you look at him, and I don't think he's the player he used to be. I think he probably might have some issues with staying on the field a little bit, but he used to be a force. And I'm just not willing to wash that away and rip that away from a guy who barely played last year because of injury. And when he played, it was likely that he was injured and he was trying to play through it. So yeah, a guy that in the past has been stout in both areas, the run defense, the pass rush. I think, in my opinion, better as a pass rusher in terms of technique and his ability to string together some different moves and put together a spin move, on a guard, be able to just absolutely manhandle one-on-one matchups and use quickness. So yeah, Jonathan Allen, I think under Brian Flores could be a real problem if he's schemed up correctly, but he has to stay healthy, right? He has to stay healthy. So also they have a pretty decent rotation, so perhaps he can stay a little bit more fresh, which will make him a more productive pass rusher in the NFL. So at number 24, Allen is not what he was, but he still belongs on this list. At number 23, Grover Stewart of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I would say from here on out, all of these defensive tackles were like, without a doubt, they're on the list. I'm not even really considering it. Even with Jonathan Allen, I was like, well, do I put him on the list? He wasn't very good last year. And then the guys before that, they were all young, up-and-coming players. Some of them inconsistent, not a lot of volume, right? There are flaws in their game. To me, like, here on out, these guys are all studs in one way, shape, or form, and they all absolutely should be in a top 32 without a shadow of a doubt. So at number 23 is Grover Stewart, and he is one of the most dominant run defenders in football. Last year, he graded as the 17th best defensive tackle according to PFF. He was 5th in run stops, which he regularly has been at the top of the NFL in that category for a number of years now. And there's a reason the Colts are so tough to run the ball on, especially up the middle. Him and Deforest Buckner, I mean, that's a pretty deadly duo. Stewart is just so strong. His anchor is just ridiculous in terms of his ability to just hold up double teams, do the dirty work for the inside, and just clean it up. So, yeah, Grover Stewart is not the sexiest guy. Like, he has 3.5 sacks this past season, 15 pressures, 5.4 win percentage. That's not his role. That's not what he's asked to do. He's not a guy that's asked to get to the quarterback and put up 10 sacks a year. He's not even really asked to penetrate all that often or get up the field. He's just asked to anchor and take on blocks and eat space and destroy the run game of opponents and debilitate and just frustrate opponents. And that's what he does. So occasionally, he can eat up and get to the quarterback with power and just pure bull rush and size. But, you know, that's not really his game, right? 74 tackles is his game. 74 tackles is a lot of tackles for a defensive tackle. So at number 23, the monster Grover Stewart. At number 22, Alim McNeil of the Detroit Lions. Now, McNeil has a caveat and an asterisk because he did get injured last year, but then he also probably will miss some time this year because of the injury last year. Now, I really like McNeil. I think he's one of the more underrated defensive tackles because I think he's very well-rounded as a player. I don't think he's special, but I just think he's very good. I like his ability against the run in terms of, like I talked about with Stewart, just his ability to kind of never lose a play. His ability to always stay with the run, be able to kind of shed when he needs to. He's got very good like timing and sense and when to like shed a blocker and get to the run, or like just even like the angle or the ability to just kind of cut down the space of where a running back wants to go. He's very strong in his hands and his ability to hold at the point of contact. And at the same time, I think he's really developed his quickness. I think he's gotten much faster, and once he got a little slimmer, he became a better pass rusher. And last year, I mean, it really showed. I wonder what his numbers would have been if he would have played the entire year. But he had 45 pressures, which was 15th in football. He was 6th in win percentage with 14.5 percentage. And then he was 23rd in PFF grade with 3.5 sacks. So a guy that I think is very well-rounded. I think he's a very smart player for a younger guy. And I think he's also just underrated as a pass rusher. Like, I think you could make a pretty strong argument that besides Aiden Hutchinson, he's their second best pass rusher on the defensive line for Detroit that was really having a good early season last year. So Alim McNeil is at number 22. Hopefully he comes back healthy. At number 21, Christian Barmore of my New England Patriots. Now, Barmore did not play in 2024, at least very much. I think he played a couple games and not really all that many snaps. But previously, especially in 2023, he had looked like an absolute juggernaut at the position. He was looking like he was going to become a top 10 defensive tackle at the position if he wasn't already categorized that as before, right? He was one of, if not the best prospect in his class when he came out of Alabama. And he was really good right away. I wouldn't say he was a game wrecker right away, but almost by year 2, I would say 2022, I think was year 2 for him. He became like a really good player on their defensive line, and you could see the difference for the Patriots in their run defense, especially when he was on or off the field. I mean, last year they were atrocious against the run. I think a lot of that was they didn't have Christian Barmore, right? Not only did they not have Bill Belichick, but they didn't have Christian Barmore. And not only that, but he's a very good pass rusher. So I just think he's one of those guys like a DeForest Buckner or a Jeffery Simmons. And I know that's like high praise, But I think Barmore has that type of skill set, which only 10 or 12 defensive tackles in football have, where they're really awesome as pass rushers and really good as run defenders. And it might not even be 12. It might be 7 or 8. I might be a little bit nice in that regard. Barmore has that potential. So dating back to 2023, he had 64 tackles, 13 tackles for loss. He had 8.5 sacks, but he was also 4th in run stops with 40. He was 17th in win percentage. He was 23rd in pass rush productivity, and he was 14th in pressures with 49, playing the 18th most snaps. So Barmore is a powerhouse with also great quickness for a man of his size, which makes him a devastating defensive tackle. It makes him a potentially upper echelon talent at the position. It's rare to have that amount of strength and power and ability to hold the double team or even the blocker and be able to win against the run and shed against the run with the combination of being able to penetrate and win with hands and quickness as a pass rusher. It's rare to have both skills. Now, under Mike Vrabel and with their new defensive coordinator being a former defensive line coach, I'd expect a lot of big-time stuff from Barmore as he's expected to take on the Jeffery Simmons role from that Titans defense in New England. So look out for him. He could easily be top 15 next year, maybe even top 10. So at number 21, Christian Barmore. At number 20, Kenny Clark of the Green Bay Packers. Kind of like what I was talking about with Jonathan Allen. Kenny Clark has been a very good player for a long time. He's been at the very least a top 20 defensive tackle, if not a top 10 defensive tackle, and even top 5, I believe I've ranked him on this list before. Kenny Clark has been really good, but last year he had an injury-riddled season where he only put up 1 sack. Now, his advanced statistics were a little bit better than that. He still put up 33 pressures, which was 31st in the NFL. He still had the 40th best win percentage, but his PFF grade was the weakest it's been in a while, only 85th, right? But he was injured, and he was not himself, and that was pretty clear and obvious, and you guys can look into those reports as you would like, but Kenny Clark has been one of the most versatile defensive tackles in football in terms of his ability to play the nose tackle position and even, different spots on the defensive line and being able to get to the quarterback, stop the run, and be the anchor of the Packers and be the guy that, even if they're not going to play with a heavy box, they're expecting Kenny Clark to be the guy that's going to hold up. Right? The Packers, for many seasons, were a defense that didn't like to bring their safeties down. They like to play too high. They like to have light boxes. And they just expected their defensive line to take care of business because Kenny Clark was up there eating blocks and beating people to the ball and eating running backs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then also on top of that, he was one of those guys that was top 10, top 5 in pressures. So he had a very well-rounded skill set in terms of that run defense, that pass rushing. I think he was just injured, and that slowed him down last year. Maybe part of it was the scheme adjustment, playing more in a wide 9 San Francisco 49ers style. Maybe, but we'll see how that develops in his later age here, entering 2025. I'm still willing to put him at 20 because I still think that he is just very well-rounded, and those guys are hard to find. At number 19, Calais Campbell of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, an easy way to find a well-rounded defensive tackle would just be by signing Calais Campbell every single offseason through free agency, but people continuously think Calais Campbell's going to fall off the face of the earth because he's 1,000 years old, and the man never does. He's a Hall of Famer in my eyes, and even for some, an all-decade member, and Calais Campbell once again had a spectacular year last year. He was 7th in run stops, and I believe he was 1st in run defense grade among all defensive tackles. He also graded 7th in the NFL according to PFF at his position, 25th in win percentage, 20th in pressures with 39. He still played a lot of snaps for Miami, 36th in the NFL with 616. So, yeah, the guy just had, again, another really good year in all facets, but especially in his run defense. I don't think he's as quick, twitchy, or his burst maybe isn't quite the same as it used to be, even when he was playing the edge position for a team like Jacksonville. It felt like he was always on the edge, but, in that 4-3, the strong side edge in that Gus Bradley, Seattle scheme type deal, the Michael Bennett sort of role. But he's played in every defense. Like, I feel like he's played every different position, every different technique of every different scheme in football. Like, the guy has aced everything that he's been a part of, right? Like, from 5 tech to 3 tech to nose tackle to like 9, like wide 9. Like, the guy's been in everything. And I feel like he's just dominated because he has that unique body. He's just a unique specimen of a football player where he's so big, he's so long, he's so tall that he weirdly still wins leverage despite being so long and tall when you would think it would be a disadvantage, because he just locks his arms and is just, you're not moving. Like, you're donezo. And he still has the ability to, I guess with those long strides, make up the space of being fast enough to play like as wide as the edge position at times in his career. So yeah, like a spectacular run defender, is savvy as ever, smart as ever, like absolutely unbelievable player, and unbelievable leader off the field, a mentor, a guy that will lead your team. So Calais Campbell, number 19, amazing player. At number 18, Ed Oliver of the Buffalo Bills. Ed Oliver is one of those guys that was drafted highly to be like the next Aaron Donald, has never lived up to that, but he's always been good. I thought maybe after his first couple years were maybe a little rough, but ever since then, he's been consistently good. I'd say like a top 20 defensive tackle in football. He's never been top 10. Like, even last year, I felt like maybe he had like a top 10 production season where he had like 10 or 11 sacks, I want to say. But overall, he's been about in that 20 through 11 range. And last year, it was kind of the same deal, right? He had 10 quarterback hits, which was 11th. He had 39 pressures, which was 20th. His win percentage was 11th. His pass rush productivity was 30th. His PFF grade was 19th, right? He didn't have the sacks that he did the previous year, but it felt like he had some moments and some games where he dominated. I thought he was one of their better players in the AFC Championship, if I'm not mistaken. He was eating blocks on the inside. He's got great quickness. He's got the ability to just pop off the ball and get, that home run rush where he's just like winning rapidly because he's got such great burst and quickness and hands right off the ball. He is a little undersized, so at times throughout his career, it feels like he's been weaker against the run because he doesn't have the power or the anchor to go against some of these big, hulking, powerful offensive lines like Baltimore or like past New England teams where they just run with the fullback straight up the middle of the Bills D-line. So he's had some subtle weaknesses there, but I think he has grown and gotten better in his ability to penetrate and win in the run game by using his quickness and by using his elite skills that made him a top-end first-round pick. So Ed Oliver, to me, number 18, good defensive tackle on the Buffalo Bills, will continue to be very solid for them for probably a few more years. At number 17, Milton Williams of the New England Patriots. A new Patriot, Milton Williams, influential on the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl run, multiple sacks on Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, a dominant force, one of the best players in the entire playoffs last year, and one of the best pass rushers at the defensive tackle position. Last year, Milton Williams, on a pure pass rushing grading, he was the best pass rush situation defensive tackle in football. Highest grade, best win percentage in those situations. Whenever an offense was passing the ball on a pass rush dependent situation, Milton Williams was winning. Milton Williams was given some good one-on-ones by opposing teams, right? And he was feasting. Jalen Carter was taking up doubles, and Milton Williams was feasting off of it. Now, some people wonder, is that going to be something that he can replicate in New England? I think it will be replicatable, especially with having Christian Barmore next to him, who should take a lot of pressure off of him, especially in the run department. I think the reason Milton Williams is not higher, despite the incredible production of last year, where he was second in pass rush productivity grade, he was first or second, I want to say second overall in pass rush grade, only behind Chris Jones. He was second in playoff pressures last year. He was fourth in win percentage. He was 19th overall in pressures with 40, despite only playing 500 snaps. That's pretty ridiculous. He was 63rd in snaps, but had 40 pressures, which was 19th, okay? He did have 5 sacks as well. So with Milton Williams, I think the reason he's not higher is because I just need to see him play more. I need to see him play more than just situationally or in rotation with another player. Like Jordan Davis, for example, of the Eagles, where they would rotate Milton in and out with Jordan Davis, or they'd have, these guys rotate together. So Milton wasn't always on the field, especially on early downs to take on and stuff the run. So there is a little bit of a question there on whether or not he is a little bit of a situationally dependent player, or whether he has the conditioning or the stamina to play in those situations. I don't think so, especially when you go back to early in his career when he did play more against the run. I felt like he was a good run defender. So I think that was just a certain Eagles deal where they were kind of just wanting him to be deployed that way. So I don't know exactly, but that's the reason I don't have him higher. It's just because he hasn't shown the lineage of success. He hasn't shown the consistent season after season after season of productivity. And it's been one huge breakout season, which got him paid immensely. I liked Milton Williams previously. I liked Milton Williams for a couple years now, I feel like. But this was the year where he was widely recognized as a game wrecker, a terrorizer of quarterbacks, and doing it in the biggest spot imaginable will get you paid big time. And that's exactly what happened. But I am very much looking forward to his combination of quickness and power on the inside with the Patriots rushing the quarterback. This is a guy that can sack the quarterback 10 times, and I wouldn't be surprised. He can get to the quarterback, right? His combination of technique with his quickness, with his power, that is a rare skill set that he has, right? He's a very good athlete in terms of his closing speed on quarterbacks. Like, this guy is the real deal. So at number 17, Milton Williams, potential huge breakout candidate because he just really could be allowed to play more, to be honest. It's not a matter that he's not already good. We know that. It's that he just has only played a certain amount. So now that he plays more, okay, now we can get the volume statistics to go along with it. At number 16, Osa Odighizuwa of the Dallas Cowboys. Odighizuwa, Milton Williams, both similar profiles in terms of pass rush first defensive tackles. Odighizuwa is one of the quickest pass rushers and penetrators at defensive tackle in football. He's been one of my guys for a number of years now. Like, I've really liked him even when he was a little bit more underrated, when he didn't have the huge contract, because I just thought he had a skill set that many defensive tackles don't offer, which is that just ability to get to the quarterback, that ability to wreck a play immediately, even in the run department, where he was 12th in stops with 30 run stops last year, with his ability to penetrate and get in the backfield. He's never graded as a great run defender, but he's one of those guys that's a bit inconsistent in that area because he isn't exactly like, we talked about the anchor and the power and the strength at the point of contact. He isn't one of these like big hulking nose tackle, big beast dudes, fridge types. He's more of the slender defensive tackle that uses quickness and penetration and burst to get to the ball. And that works really well in attacking style of defense. And that's where he'll blow up plays and he'll make plays and he'll cause tackles for loss and he'll cause negative plays. But he does also give up plays and give up rushing lanes because he is so quick to get in the backfield that it can counteract his ability to penetrate upfield. So 12th in run stops, but his grading won't kind of correlate with that. I think that's the reasoning. But last year, he really saw an uptick in his ability to play for Dallas in terms of second in snaps at the position, third in pressures at the position. So second in snaps with 859. They relied on him to play a ton last year with all the injuries they had in Dallas. Third in pressures with 60. Fifth in win percentage, despite a high volume of snaps. he was still very productive, which is good, thumbs up in terms of pass rushing, right? Like 5th in win percentage, 13th in PRP, pass rush productivity, which is still very strong, 38th overall in PFF grade, 4th in quarterback hits with 14. So really, as a statistical profile, he was easily a top 15 defensive tackle. Maybe I underrated him here, but there's just so many good defensive tackles. I just feel like he's a little bit lesser than some against the run and doesn't quite have the big bombastic sack seasons that some of the other guys have as well. Like 4.5 sacks despite 60 pressures. Maybe he's got to finish a little bit better and all that stuff. But I love his quick penetration skills. I love his ability to just get in the backfield and win as a pass rusher. Like, that's bottom line right there. So really quick hands, really quick feet. And honestly, when you watch the Dallas D-line, like, he's the first one getting contact on an offensive lineman, even sometimes before Micah Parsons. So yeah, he's the man. I think he fully deserves that contract. So at number 16, Osa Odighizuwa. At number 15, John Franklin-Meyers, who kind of interchangeable here, in my opinion, with Odighizuwa, playing totally different defenses with totally different schemes in mind here. And really, it's kind of like picking your poison, but I feel like John Franklin-Meyers has just showcased that he can play in more defenses and more styles, and I think maybe he's a little bit more versatile of a player in terms of, I think he's a little stronger against the run, but that's dependent on where they're placed and what their role is. Franklin-Meyers is a little bit more of the guy that uses length and technique over quickness and burst. Like, we've talked about some of the guys that use pure quickness, pure burst, pure first step, kind of like a Odighizuwa. Franklin-Meyers is more about the leverage and the ability to kind of like pull and dip and be able to get his arm over you, or his ability to just like set you up in a way. Like, he's a lot more technically refined, I feel like, in terms of just, he needs to rely on that aspect, and he uses that long arm reach advantage that he has. I also really like the aspect of John Franklin-Meyers being able to play for the Jets, play in more of a 4-3 attacking wide 9 style of defense, play the strong side edge role, and then be able to rotate inside to play more of a 5-tech position with the Broncos, or even play at defensive tackle in a 3-tech pass rushing situation. I feel like he kind of can do a lot of different things at a high level. Last year, he was top 10 in pressures, 9th with 53. He was actually first in win percentage at 18.4, and he was also first in pass rush productivity at 8.8. So he had an extremely strong pass rushing season last year for the Denver Broncos. He was 6th in PFF grade as well overall. He was 31st in run stops. It's not the strength of his game in this new defense, but he certainly isn't bad in that area. And 7 sacks, 40 tackles. So a lot of production for John Franklin-Meyers last year. This is going to be a common theme when I talk about Zach Allen a little bit later and the Broncos. They could have had 3 players on this list. DJ Jones is also extremely good, but they like to rush 5 a lot. They like to go one-on-one a lot, and that gives you a lot of one-on-one matchups for John Franklin-Meyers and a lot of mismatches for him against guards in the NFL, and that a lot of times did not work out well for a lot of opponents. And as we've seen with him, he can play on the edge, he can play inside, he can play in those stunts and those twists because of his ability to, play those different positions and techniques. So at number 15, John Franklin-Meyers, just the versatility, love this player, pass rushing production last year on an efficiency basis. There was nobody better than JFM. At number 14, Zach Sieler, who is a pure maniac of a defensive tackle. Last year, he had a second consecutive 10-sack season. Probably the quietest 20 sacks I've ever seen in my entire life as an NFL fan. Nobody knows that Zach Sieler had 10 sacks last year. I feel like absolutely nobody, except for maybe Dolphins fans, know how productive he has been over the last 2 years. And he's really been a great player for the last 3 or 4 years in the NFL, but extremely underrated, perennially underrated. But to me, when watching Zach Sieler, it's not a particular skill or trait that he offers that really wows me. I think he's incredibly violent. I think he's very physical. He's tough, and he is relentless. Like, he never gives up on a play. I also feel like he's very aware and he's instinctive. Like, there's plays that he sniffs out screens, he intercepts passes, he tips passes, he's in passing lanes, he bull rushes. I think he uses his more so, he's not very like malleable or quick or like flexible, I should say. He's more of a leverage, long-armed power guy with strength. But I just feel like the reason he wins is because he's so violent and he's so relentless. Like, he just never, ever, ever just like takes a play off. So 14th in pressures last year with 46, 12th in PFF grade, 10 sacks, 16th in stops. That speaks to the well-rounded nature of that production. Like, he plays a ton of snaps. He's good in every situation. You never have to take him off the field. He makes plays. Like, he sniffs the football. He's just got a knack for finding it, whether it's forced fumbles or diving on footballs or sacks or interceptions. Like, he's just always making a play. So at number 14, that's why I have Zach Sieler here on the list. At number 13, the man that I thought was called Justin Madubuike, but I guess it's Nnamdi Madubuike. I forgot when he switched his name. If anybody can let me know. I don't know. Was that in a different universe or something? Was it in my dreams? I thought his name was Justin. But anyways, he had 6.5 sacks last year. He was 4th in pressures. Not quite as spectacular of a season as he had in 2023 under Mike Macdonald. But still, I think what he did for us was provide and prove that he is an elite caliber player at this position by stacking together 2 consecutive very good seasons, right? A lot of times you'll see a guy put together a 10 sack, 11 sack season. The next year he's getting doubled. The next year teams are identifying him. They know where he is. They know where he's lining up. They want to put their best guy on him or their double team on him or chip him or whatever as a pass rusher. And I think Madubuike proved that it wasn't just Mike Macdonald. It wasn't just that, he was getting one-on-ones. No. He's still productive. Even if he didn't have the sacks, sometimes sacks can be a little bit more fluky and pressures are more reliable. So Madubuike, 4th in pressures with 56. He still was 22nd in pass rush productivity, 22nd in win percentage, and he did play the 6th most snaps, also contributing the 20 most stops in the NFL. So very well-rounded player. 30th in PFF grade. What he's really good at, to me, is he's a smaller defensive tackle in terms of shorter. And kind of like I talked about with Poona Ford, he uses that leverage to his advantage. He is very quick. And he does have that trait where I talked about with Zach Sieler. Sieler's a more like taller and longer player. Madubuike reminds me of a Grady Jarrett, where he's more of like, he's got that flexibility, he's got that dip, he's got that ability to kind of like use his body in awkward positions and use leverage and get underneath a lineman or even dip underneath a lineman or use quick hands or quick feet. He wins that way rather than winning with the ability to extend and win with leverage and win with shedding, right? He wins more with quickness and getting upfield and just being a really hard guy to get your hands on because he's both very powerful and very, very quick, right? Up the field in a unique sense because he's in a smaller package. So at number 13, I really like how he's utilized in a lot of games and schemes and stunts in their pressure packages. He's always kind of the guy that is the focal point of those different, schemes because he does have that unique skill of having great burst. So that allows the guys around him to work off of him, like Kyle Van Noy and like these other edge rushers away. So yeah, Madubuike, very good player. I don't think he's quite top 10, but he's close. I think any given season, he could float in that range. At number 13, the best defensive lineman on one of the best defenses in football. Next up, we have at number 12, Kobie Turner. of the Los Angeles Rams. Him and Madubuike, I feel like fairly similar in terms of they both had a breakout season in the same year. Now, Turner's a second-year player. Madubuike's been around for a little bit longer, but I kind of like, in my mind, I place them in the same area as like guys that haven't quite reached the pinnacle of overall consistent production year after year after year, where we just know they're an absolute alpha Pro Bowl stud every year. But they're kind of getting there where it's like, okay, Kobie Turner now 2 years in a row, 9 sacks, 8 sacks. Like this past season, even I think showcased more of that versatility of his game where he was 7th in pressures and 4th in run stops. That's a very short list of players. He might have been the only one. He was at least one of the only ones that was that high on both of those metrics. Like that's an extremely impressive stat right there. Also played the 4th most snaps. Kobie Turner, though, I do think is more aided through scheme a little bit more than some of these other guys for pass rushing productivity because the Rams like to send 5 a lot, and that does give him some one-on-ones. I also don't feel like Turner is the most disruptive or the most, like, the quickest to get in the backfield. A lot of times it feels like his sacks are based off effort or his sacks are based off that second rush or the penetration of someone else, and it results in Turner getting the sack. That's kind of like a very finicky, nitpicky thing for a very good player. But once we're getting to like the top 12 of this position, I have to clarify kind of like what I see and why it makes that player a little bit lower than the others. But, I mean, there's really no complaint with any area of his game. I think his most impressive area is his run defense. He's very stout as a run defender. Like, as a nose tackle, he holds his own against double teams. He rarely loses a rep. He's able to take up space and make others around him better, like Fiske, for example, like Young, for example, Jared Verse, right? He's the guy, he's kind of the engine of the D-line in terms of the dirty work, but he's also a guy that gets that job done while also producing at an elite level of statistics, which is a rare combination, right? 4th in stops, 7th in pressures, 18th in pass rush productivity, 20th in PFF grade, 28th in win percentage, 8 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 62 tackles. So he has an impact on the game statistically, and he has an impact on the game just in terms of what they ask him to do, which not always correlates, right? So at number 12, I have Kobie Turner. At number 11, Derrick Brown of the Carolina Panthers. Derrick Brown's difficult to rank because he basically didn't play last year. So I'll throw up his 2023 statistics where he was an absolute maniac in terms of stopping the run and really like being the only guy on the defense that made a damn play against the run. He had 103 tackles in 2023. 103 for a defensive tackle is insane. I think that might be the most ever. Right? And he had 53 stops, which was first in the NFL. He was also 12th in quarterback hits, even though he only resulted in 2 sacks. But he's not a sack guy. Like, I think in like 4 years of his career, he has like 8 sacks maybe. So like 2 per year sounds about right. He is more of a natural nose tackle, but he is arguably the best pure run defender in the NFL when he is active and playing. In 2023, he played the most snaps in the NFL. So when they lost him in 2024, it was a completely different defense. They had no idea what they were doing, and they could not stop a soul on the ground. They were a pathetic defense in Carolina. The Panthers were pathetic without Derrick Brown. And that goes to show how good of a player he is, how valuable he is, how much he brings to the defense. Because with him, they were at least serviceable. Without him, they were trash. Like, awful, right? 4th in PFF grade the previous year. So you could have graded him or ranked him as a top 5 defensive tackle in the previous year. I have him 11th here, partly because he's not like the best pure pass rusher and he doesn't produce a ton of overall pass rush productivity, right? The last year, he was 28th in pressures, which is good, but 58th in pass rush productivity at 4.5, which speaks to like the volume. He doesn't have the efficiency of some of the top defensive tackles, but as a pure run defender, absolute animal, absolute mammoth. So at number 11, we have to see him healthy again. Didn't play last year. Felt like more healthy guys deserve to be in front of him, but still going to put the respect on his name to have him as that honorable mention of the top 10. At number 10, Vita Vea of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Been a huge fan of Vita Vea for his entire career. He is such a unique football player. There's really nobody like Vita Vea in the NFL. Like, he is a pure nose tackle who has pass rush production, drops into coverage, knocks your head off, and like is one of the best run stoppers in football. So he really has a very complete skill set. He's not, in terms of pass rushing, he largely wins through his pure size and power. He's very fast, though, for a guy of his size. Like, very twitchy and fast for a guy of that size. It's just that he's never going to be one of the top pass rushers because he's just so big. And he's always double teamed, so his production isn't always going to match, some of these other guys because he's a nose tackle. Like, he's being asked to take up more space of an offensive line than other players. It's that simple, right? But that is his skill, is how much space he takes up ever since he's been on their line, right? They've been the best run defense in football. Like, if you were to look at their metrics since he's been a part of their team, which I think is 2019, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2018. I can't quite remember, but ever since he's been a member of their defense under Todd Bowles, they have consistently been the best run defense in football. And it's because he takes up so much space, and he's also so versatile and quick at that size that it makes them impossible to run the ball on up the middle. You basically have to find exact specific schemes to exploit different avenues of approach against Vita Vea because you can't run straight at him. It's not going to work. It's like Vince Wilfork. It's not going to work, right? But then last year, he had one of his better pass rushing seasons. He had 7 sacks. He had 50 pressures, which was 12th in the NFL. He was 13th in win percentage, and he was 18th in PFF grade. So along with having 27 stops, which was top 20 in the NFL, and being a very good force in the run game, just in terms of wrecking plays, he also produced quite a bit of pressure. So that's pretty complete to me. I could have ranked him higher. It's just that I feel like he kind of is specific. Like he plays in one role specifically. I feel like he's had some injury issues over the past couple of years to stay on the field, maybe partly because of his size. And he doesn't purely dominate as a pass rusher as much as the other top guys. It's kind of, again, nitpicking here, but incredible player. Love him. One of my favorites, for sure. No doubt about it. Especially when you see him drop into coverage on those zone blitz funky looks that Todd Bowles sends, and then he somehow gets in coverage and he bats the ball down or intercepts it or knocks the guy's head off on a crossing route. Though that's so entertaining. I love Vita Vea. At number 9, Quinnen Williams of the New York Jets. So now we're getting into the extremely, extremely good, well-rounded, very few flaws in their game. Quinnen Williams, the only thing I could really say about him negatively is that I think he's taken advantage of in the run game, I think more than the guys that are in front of him, maybe except for one. But I thought that guy's production in the pass rush department was so ridiculous that I had to put him a little bit higher. But Quinnen Williams, he's an absolute powerhouse. That's how you describe him. He's the classic 3-tech who is an absolute powerhouse. His power is insane. And then also he's got great burst up the field, but he wins with bull rush. He wins with straight ahead, menacing power, right? And he just runs through people. And he's a problem. There's nothing you can do. He doesn't even need technique. He just destroys people. It's not to say he doesn't have it. I'm just saying, he is maybe the strongest dude at this position with the most power when you combine that pure strength and pure speed and burst at the position, right? 7th in pressures, 8th in win percentage, 5th in pass rush productivity, across the board elite, okay? 6 sacks, 14th in QB hits with 9, 31st in stops, so a little bit weaker in the run metrics, 32nd in PFF grade, which was one of his weaker grades, I feel like, in recent years. I think some of that had to do with the lack of other good defensive linemen on his line this year compared to other years. I think part of that had to do with no Robert Saleh for the entire season. And I think, like I said, I feel like the run defense department, sometimes he's a little bit more, he faces double teams against everybody on like every play. Like there's nobody, it feels like, that gets double teamed more than Quinnen Williams. And I think he just kind of like gives up sometimes because he's on the Jets. Like, I don't even blame him. But I have him at number 9. He's an absolute powerhouse animal. One of the best pass rushers at this position and one of the best game wreckers at this position as well. At number 8, Zach Allen of the Denver Broncos. My guy, Zach Allen. If you've been following the BLV, you would know that Zach Allen's been one of my favorites. And honestly, I wanted to rank him like number 6, but it felt like a little bit too much just because Zach Allen hasn't quite been as consistently productive as the guys in front of him. But last year's stats are just outrageous, okay? So he played the most snaps at the position, 964, just like his idol, his mentor, J.J. Watt. He is an absolute just machine in terms of cardio. But also on top of that, he was first in pressures with 75, which was more than Chris Jones. He was 9th in productivity. He had 8.5 sacks, although I think PFF grades him with 11. So I don't really know where those numbers are coming from. 61 tackles, 15 tackles for loss. And guys, he was first in quarterback hits with 28 by about 12 or 13. Like, the guy had more. You look at quarterback hits and you sort by quarterback hits. On Pro Football Reference, he had 40. On PFF, he had 28. And he had about 13 more than number 2. That's outrageous. This guy smacks the quarterback at every chance he gets. But Zach Allen, man, I think he's so good because he's so technical. I think that he isn't the strongest, I would say, and I think that's where his weakness comes up, is against the run. I think sometimes he can lose at the point of attack in terms of holding up in his run defense. But just like J.J. Watt, man, this guy's got a bag of tricks. This guy's got a lot of different moves he can go to, and he wins with length regularly. Length and quickness, I think, are his primary skills. He wins with that leverage. He wins with like pulling linemen, tugging, ripping through them, swiping their hands. He wins in so many different ways. I feel like he just has so many different angles to attack you at. I think, again, I keep bringing up J.J. Watt, but he's kind of like the light version of him, and he learned a lot of his traits from him and a lot of his skills. I feel like he really shined last year. And the thing I will say about the Broncos, like I brought up with John Franklin-Meyers, and like I brought up with these Rams guys, the scheme also helps them produce pressure because a lot of these are one-on-ones. Like, a lot of these situations, they send 5 a lot. It's just the archetype of their defense. It's the way they like to play. And Zach Allen fully took advantage of that. I mean, this guy was smacking quarterbacks. Like, they had the most sacks in the NFL last year. Zach Allen was at the centerpiece of it. He was the biggest game wrecker of game wreckers on the game-wrecking defense of football last year. So that's why I had to rank him in the top 8, even if he doesn't have the lineage of a career where he's been in this situation of a top 10 guy. But he has been top 20, in my opinion, before. So at number 8, Zach Allen. At number 7, Deforest Buckner, probably the most underrated defensive player in football. Like, I don't know why I consistently see him left off of top 100s, top 50s, top whatever lists you want to throw out there. This guy is just constantly disrespected. Like, last year, 8th in PFF grade. I think he only played like 9 or 10 games. He had 6.5 sacks in 9 or 10 games, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. He was also 9th in win percentage. He had 35 pressures on only 579 snaps. So last year he had some injury issues. He is getting a little bit older. I think he's 31 or 32 now, if I'm not mistaken. But still, 35 pressures in 579 snaps, 6.5 sacks. That's insane, right? 33 stops in 579 snaps. That's 10th in the NFL, 33 stops. So he's one of the best run defenders, and he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. He's the tallest guy at this position at 6'7". He looks like a human statue, like Hercules. Like, the guy is huge with long arms, and he's scary. This guy is scary, especially when he puts that visor on with the face mask, bro. He's got the aura, 61 tackles. Deforest Buckner is a dog. I don't understand why people don't give him the respect that he deserves. He is the best player on that defense. He has been the best player on that defense. He is the best player on the defense. He was really good on the Niners. He's been really good for years. I don't get it. I'm lost. I don't understand why he isn't put in this sort of discussion to me. I don't know. He's always the forgotten man. But to me, look at his per game numbers last year. There are not many that are matching DeForest Buckner. At number 6, Jeffery Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. Now, Buckner, Quinnen, Zach Allen, I think as pure pass rushers are probably better. But I feel like Simmons, if you were to filter for pure pass rushing situations, remember, he played on the Titans last year, guys. So he didn't have a lot of situations where he could go after the quarterback. So you have to be fair about that statistically, right? But I think he might be the best or second best run defender at the position in the entire NFL. And he's also like top 5, top 6, top 7 as a pass rusher, especially, when it comes to just pure power. Simmons is a beast. I think he is one of the best wreckers in the NFL. Just like, I think that's why I rank him this high, is I think he wrecks game plans. I think he wrecks games in more ways than most other players. Like, he can wreck the game as a pass rusher or a run defender. In both areas, he can affect the game at a very high level. Second in run stops last year. He's been elite in that category for his entire career. 76 tackles last season. 10th in PFF grade, 15th in pressures with 45, 12th in win percentage with 12.7%, 7th in snaps. Honestly, you look at that Titans defense, they had no good pass rushers really last year, honestly. Simmons is the heart and soul of the defense, another Pro Bowl campaign last year, and one of the best messers of offenses, one of the best dictators of terms, like one of the best in terms of just messing up runs, getting to quarterbacks, pressuring quarterbacks, having a presence. Like, that's Jeffery Simmons to me. So, powerhouse. At number 6, Jeff Simmons. At number 5, Leonard Williams. Now, you talk about the original Mitch guy, Leonard Williams. You guys know, if you've been watching the BLV for a while, Leonard Williams has been my guy. And I think this might be the highest I've ever ranked. I might have ranked him 4 before. I don't know. Maybe I ranked him 4 before. But this is one of the best seasons of his career. And he's like 10 years into his career, which is spectacular. I kind of thought that he was falling off a little bit or dipping in his production. But he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate last year, guys. Like, this guy was unbelievable. He won games through blocking field goals and sacking quarterbacks and penetrating and winning against the run. Talk about statistical profile. Second in stops, second in quarterback hits, 11 sacks, 64 tackles. He was also 6th in pressures with 55, 6th in pass rush productivity, and 4th in PFF grade. Across the board, absolutely elite production for Leonard Williams. And like I said, he showed up in every way, shape, or form. He showed up in special teams. He showed up in run defense. He showed up in pass rush. And I think he's got a very well-rounded skill set. But he's always been known for, he's more of a, if you look at him, he's tall. Like, he's 6'5"-ish, 6'6"-ish. He's got those long arms. And he's got the, like, long limbs, right? He doesn't look like the big-bellied defensive tackle. He looks like a defensive end, kind of, right? And he's more of that 5-tech type deal. But I feel like we've seen him play in every system, every scheme, be productive in all those different areas. And with Mike Macdonald, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't exactly know, like, pinpoint schematically why exactly he took off this way. But man, he was winning with like quickness in a way that I feel like he didn't show previously, by getting into the backfield and just like winning through just quick pop and getting through. I feel like he was winning through leverage and technique. I guess he's just at that stage of his career where his physical ability and his technique are matching up, and he still has enough of that physical ability left where he's still dominating the trenches in that way. So that might be what it is. But I just feel like the instincts off the charts, a 98-yard pick six or whatever it was, 92 yards. He had a pick six as a defensive tackle from 90 yards out. So that speaks to his speed, speaks to his athleticism. You know, he's got the size, he's got the power to anchor a D-line against the run. He's got the athleticism to intercept the ball. He's got the ball skills, apparently. You know, this guy's just a baller, man. Leonard Williams is just a beast. I don't know what else to say. He did it all last year. At number 4, I have Jalen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Carter, like statistically speaking, I don't think was as sexy or as impressive or as Leonard Williams. Definitely not. But, you know, he only had 4.5 sacks, 42 tackles. He was 9th in pressures. But I think if you were collectively to look at him from like a front to back and how he played by the end of the year in the playoffs, he was the best defensive player in the playoffs last year. You could talk about Cooper DeJean, Milton Williams, Chris Jones, whoever you want to talk about, bro. Jalen Carter was head and shoulders the best player in the playoffs last year. Maybe in the entire playoff, like maybe Saquon. But Jalen Carter was phenomenal. And in all areas, I think he is a animal against the run. He is an angry, vicious psycho. Like, this guy wants to hurt you. Like, you literally can sense it. He feels like he's angry on every snap. And he is powerful, and he's quick. Right? I think he's like a better version of Quinnen Williams, which is insane. I think he's like a more technical, handsy version of Quinnen Williams. I think he's laterally quicker, and he is strong as hell. This guy could play nose tackle. You know, every position. He could probably play on the edge. I don't think we've ever really seen that, but I feel like he could do it all. Like, he did it at Georgia, where he was playing kind of like more of a nose tackle role. In Philly, you know, he could do it all. Like, dude, this guy is just a game wrecker. A game wrecker. A force. He could be the best D tackle in football very soon. If he puts up the statistical production to match it, then we'll see. But yeah, like, I'm not worried about losing Milton Williams. I'm not worried about losing Josh Sweat, because Jalen Carter's there. He's the guy. He's the dog, right? Like, he is the man. So yeah, absolutely outrageous last year in the playoffs, especially. Big time game record, Jalen Carter. At number 3, Cameron Heyward of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the ageless wonder, the bull rush, stab, spectacular Cam Heyward with another 8-sack season. But the underlying metrics are incredible. 1st in PFF grade, 4th in pressures with 56, 7th in win percentage at 14.1. Led the entire defensive line, not interior D-line, not edge rush, both in tipped passes. Cam Heyward, at 1,000 years old, led the NFL in deflected passes. 71 tackles. 1st in stops against the run with 44. Beast. Bull rush beast. Cam Heyward is so smart, first of all. I mean, his savviness, his awareness to see, like, tip those passes down, even like sensing in his rushing lanes when a quarterback's going to scramble to collapse the pocket or close that window. His run defense technique has always been great. His power, his size. He's so thick. He's so thick. He's so hard to block because he's so strong and powerful. And yeah, just because his age says a certain number doesn't mean he's still not playing at an insane level. Like, this guy is sick. So yeah, Cam Heyward is still unbelievable, and he's one of the best leaders in football, and he's one of the best humans in football. He's one of the best leaders at this position. He's one of the best guys off the field, and he's an incredible producer in all areas with 8 sacks and 44 run stops, which was first in the NFL last year. Cam Heyward at number 3. At number 2, Dexter Lawrence of the New York Giants. Dexter Lawrence on a per-game basis last year might be number 1. Like, he had 9 sacks in like 10 games. Maybe it was 12. I don't know. But it felt like it was 9 sacks in 9 games. Felt like he had a sack every game. The guy was an absolute beast. He plays nose tackle. He's like 360 pounds, and he has 9 sacks. That doesn't make any sense, guys. That shouldn't make any sense. He's a one of a kind. He's Rob Van Dam. Okay? He's one of a kind. 9 sacks for a nose tackle in like 9 games. 2nd in PFF grade, 13th in win percentage. He had 36 pressures in 551 snaps. 36. 36. That's even better than Deforest Buckner did. Deforest Buckner had 35 in 579, which is sick. Dexter Lawrence had 36 and 551. This guy's a beast, and you can't run the ball on him. He's too big. He's too strong. He's too wide. He's too quick. He's sexy Dexy. That's why he's at number 2. At number 1, Chris Jones. Stone cold Chris Jones. I saw ESPN put Dexter Lawrence. I respect it. I can't. Chris Jones is the big game player. Is there any defensive player you'd rather have start for your defense? If you had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft for a defensive player to play in the Super Bowl for your favorite team, who would you pick? I might pick Chris Jones. 2nd in pressures, 2nd in win percentage, 3rd in pass rush productivity, 3rd in PFF grade. Yeah, you can look at the 5 sacks. He was still the best pass rusher in football at his position. He wasn't lower than 3rd in any pass rushing metric. He was 1 pressure behind Zach Allen. And there are players in terms of efficiency that play way less snaps than him, that he was still as efficient as, right? Guys like Milton Williams, right? That we've talked about. And he was 2nd in QB hits too. So yeah, he didn't have his sack season, and he's always double teamed. It's not like the Chiefs have one of the 5 best defensive lines in football. It's not like they have TJ Watt on one edge. You know? If you're Cam Heyward, for example. Like, yeah, Karlaftis is good, but Karlaftis is better because of Chris Jones. It's not the other way around. You know what I'm saying? Even Jalen Carter had other guys that you had to block. Chris Jones is Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. That's it. You could essentially double team, you know, Chris Jones on every play if you wanted. So, yeah, sometimes he doesn't really care about stopping the run. I feel like that's kind of like his weakness or his nitpick is he just doesn't always give his 100% effort against the run. But he is very calculated. He's very smart. Chris Jones is extremely smart. His IQ is off the charts. How many times have we seen this guy tip the ball in a big situation on a big 3rd down in a big playoff game? How many times? How many times has he had the pressure? How many times has he been unblocked? You think that's coincidence? Or you think that's Chris Jones? So, yeah, his quickness, his strength, his power, his IQ, all make him the player that he is. He's a Hall of Famer without a doubt. He's one of the key pieces of the dynasty. As big of a part of the dynasty as Travis Kelce, in my opinion. I know that's pretty crazy. I think he's as big of a part. So, number 1, Christopher Jones. Those are my interior defensive line rankings, the top 32 in football. Edge will be next, guys. Defensive lines after that. So if you want that, Gronk spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. It's Mitch. Peace.